Welcome to Layla Lynn TV, the channel for celebrity news and entertainment. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell so that you're notified of every new episode. Former First Lady Michelle Obama has released a memoir in which she reveals difficulties about her marriage and pregnancy with her two daughters. In the book, which is called Becoming, Michelle Obama reveals that she had a miscarriage and used in vitro fertilization to conceive both of her daughters, Malia and Sasha. She wrote, quote, "We were trying to get pregnant and it wasn't going well. We had one pregnancy test come back positive, which caused us both to forget every worry and swoon with joy. But a couple of weeks later, I had a miscarriage, which left me physically uncomfortable and cratered any optimism we felt." Michelle Obama told ABC's Good Morning America that she felt, quote, "lost and alone" after her miscarriage 20 years ago. Michelle Obama, who is a former lawyer and hospital administrator, told ABC that after her miscarriage, quote, "I felt like I had failed because I didn't know how common miscarriages were because we don't talk about them." And you guys, in case you didn't know, according to the March of Dimes, as many as 50% of all pregnancies end in miscarriage, most often before a woman misses a menstrual period or even knows she's pregnant. About 15 to 25% of recognized pregnancies will end in miscarriage. Michelle said, quote, "We sit in our own pain thinking that somehow we're broken. It's important to talk to young mothers about the fact that miscarriages happen." And you guys, not only do miscarriages happen, but they happen a lot. And personally, I think the reason we as women don't talk about miscarriages more often is, one, because we don't want to scare women who are pregnant. And I remember before I got pregnant, someone told me that 1/3 of all pregnancies end in miscarriage. And honestly, I did have that fear of miscarrying for most of both of my pregnancies. And the second reason I think women don't talk about miscarriages openly and more often is because it can make you feel like a failure or less of a woman if you're not able to carry a child. Michelle Obama talked about feeling like a failure in retrospect, and she said she felt like a failure. But if you listen closely, she actually said, "I feel like a failure," as if it still bothers her.
I felt lost and alone, and I felt like I failed. I felt lost and alone, and I felt like I failed.
Michelle also told Robin Roberts on Good Morning America, quote, "I think the worst thing that we do to each other as women, not share the truth about our bodies and how they work." She said that when she was around 34 years old, she realized that, quote, "the biological clock is real and that egg production is limited," which made her decide to seek in vitro fertilization.
It turns out that even two committed go-getters with a deep love and robust work ethic can't will themselves into being pregnant. She did get pregnant, but then weeks later, she miscarried.
I felt lost and alone, and I felt like I failed because I didn't know how common miscarriages were, because we don't talk about them. We sit in our own pain, thinking that somehow we're broken.
She reveals that it was with the help of infertility treatments that Malia and then Sasha were finally conceived.
The biological clock is real because egg production is limited. And I realized that as I was 34 and 35, we had to do IVF. I think it's the worst thing that we do to each other as women, not share the truth about our bodies and how they work and how they don't work.
In vitro fertilization is one form of assisted reproduction and typically involves removing eggs from a woman, fertilizing them with sperm in a lab, and implanting a resulting embryo into the woman's uterus. It costs thousands of dollars for every cycle, and many couples require more than one cycle. Michelle Obama details the process of IVF in her book, saying she was alone and had to self-administer the shots that are required to help the process. She said her, quote, "sweet, attentive husband was at the state legislature, leaving her largely on her own to manipulate her reproductive system into peak efficiency." And I know that was tough for Michelle Obama to share because it's so personal, but I'm glad to hear that she's opening up about her IVF journey in her new book. To me, utilizing IVF or any other assistance in having a baby doesn't mean you're a failure. It means you're a fighter. You're willing to fight whatever obstacles are blocking you from becoming a mother. And I commend any woman who's willing to fight that fight. And speaking of fighters, Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade announced yesterday on social media that they welcomed a baby into the world on Wednesday, November 7th via surrogacy. Gabrielle posted a picture of her in the hospital bed doing skin to skin with her baby, and in the caption she said, "We are sleepless and delirious, but so excited to share that our miracle baby arrived last night via surrogate, and 11/7 will forever be etched in our hearts as the most loveliest of all the lovely days. Welcome to the party, sweet girl. Hashtag one last dance, hashtag skin to skin." If you flip through the other pictures that Gabrielle Union posted, you can see that not only is she doing skin to skin, but she's also in a hospital bed and hospital gown. And at first I thought this was just for the family pictures for the baby, so when she looks back at the pictures from the day she was born, the pictures will look like Gabrielle Union gave birth to her. But I did some research on this, and I found that mothers who have used a surrogate to carry their baby can and often do get their own hospital room. A mother who used a surrogate blogged about this, and she said that she was put in touch with a social worker at the hospital to ensure that the hospital staff were aware of her and her husband's circumstances and to confirm that they would get their own room post-delivery separate from the surrogate. So it sounds like Gabrielle Union was in the hospital bed like that because she may have had her own room with the baby at the hospital. As y'all know, the hospital staff like to monitor babies for 24 to 48 hours after birth. So it makes sense that Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade would be checked into the hospital during that time to be with their new baby girl. In the past, Gabrielle Union has also opened up about her struggles with infertility. Check out this quick clip of an interview Gabrielle Union did with Dr. Oz this past July. At this point, Gabrielle surrogate was already pregnant with her baby, but Gabrielle just hadn't announced her pregnancy yet. Check out what she did say.
You have been very open, and I treasure the fact that you're bravely acknowledging that you've had infertility issues.
Yes.
I know it's difficult to do. So I'll leave it to you. What's gone on in the last 3 years that has caused issues for you?
Well, I initially I didn't know what the issue was. I got off birth control. I got married, and I was ready to start a family. And
Married Dwayne Wade, by the way.
Yeah.
Wonderful basketball player. Congratulations. He has good taste in women. You should tell him that.
I remind him of that daily. But yeah, and I didn't think there was going to be any problem, and there was. So I was always having these early miscarriages, some from IVF and some just naturally happening on our own.
How many miscarriages did you have?
Literally, that's why I lost track. It's somewhere like 8 or 9, give or take.
Oh.
Yeah. The first one was the most brutal because we told people, and we were so excited, and you dream of this moment, and those dreams were just crushed. And then they just happened in sort of rapid succession over the next few years.
How has this affected you physically?
Oh gosh. So with IVF, there's bloating. And the bloating can mimic, you can actually look like you are in your second trimester of pregnancy, which because, there was like bump watch, for like, 100 times, in the last few years. Everyone's like, oh, she's pregnant. And really, I'm just bloated, trying to get pregnant. But the excitement just led to confirmation of pregnancy. And I'm like, there's no baby. And when it doesn't work, it can be absolutely devastating. And as women, there's so many women hiding in plain sight, suffering in silence. Yeah. Nobody wants the world, which is what it feels like, the world to think that you're defective or less than a perfect woman or less than capable. And there's just so much shame and mystery and guilt that surrounds fertility issues. And that's why I wanted to include it in my book, because I'm tired of it. It needs to stop.
Well, you don't look very defective to me.
I'm not.
But I do want to ask you, though, it's a lot to go through. And even hearing you describe it, I think we all feel the pain in your voice. Why was it so important to talk about it now? Why not talk about it in 10 years when this is all finished and done? Why do you feel the urgency to be out in front of this?
Because there's no reason to feel alone. There's no reason to suffer in silence. There's no reason to feel like you're SEAL Team 6 getting to a doctor's appointment because you're afraid of what someone's gonna say about, a medical issue, which drives people further and further into the shadows, and you're literally suffering in silence. And I'm saying no more, enough.
Okay, so Gabrielle did this interview after her surrogate was already pregnant, so it was basically after she had already came out on top in her fight to become a mother. She fought to have her own child in this world one way or another, and she knew that her child was on the way. I also want to encourage more people to share their battle with infertility even before they've won the fight. You have to speak about things that are not as if they were. There's a Bible verse that says, "Call those things which be not as if they were." That means speaking about things as if they have happened even before they've happened. God shows us how powerful words are in the very first chapter of the Bible, where he says, "Let there be light. Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together. Let the dry land appear." As Christians, we're called to follow God's example, and that's the very first example he gave for us to follow. I'm talking Genesis chapter 1. So even if you've never read much of the Bible, you've either read or heard Genesis chapter 1. And in that very first chapter, God tells us to call those things which be not as if they were. When we do that, we align ourselves with the Word of God, and the Word of God is powerful. It makes things happen. I think it's important to speak by faith, even if you want to happen hasn't happened yet. So I encourage anyone watching this video that's in a similar situation to do just that. Call those things which be not as though they were. And if you're dealing with pregnancy loss, my friend Erica has a faith-based grief and pregnancy loss group at sistersinloss.com that might be helpful to you. Sisters in Loss is a community of Christian Black women who have experienced loss due to miscarriage, infant or child loss, pregnancy loss, stillbirth, or infertility. You guys leave a comment and let me know what you think about Michelle Obama revealing that her and Barack used IVF to have both of her daughters. And let me know what you think about Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade using a surrogate. As always, thanks for watching.